Call the meeting to order. That's the first item on the agenda. Second item on the agenda is roll call.
Henry Savigny,
Here.
Martin Alaman,
Here.
Nathan Bratton, Arturo Garcia, Patty Goldberg, Carol Alexander, here, Ben Quitt.
Here.
You do have a quorum.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda are the minutes from the prior meeting held on May 8th, Tuesday at 5:30. I'll give you a few seconds to go through the pages. I believe we received a copy of this before the last meeting that was canceled, but it's been a while since we've seen it. Are there any comments, questions, additions, deletions?
Motion to approve the minutes.
There's a motion to approve the minutes of the meeting of May 8th. Is there a second?
A second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Now, minutes say that you requested a work map presented to you requested an electronic copy of the utility work map. Did we get that?
No, we
We
haven't.
haven't. I need to follow up with them. They haven't. I did follow
So
up.
I wasn't here at the last one, so I guess he has a presentation of all their projects that they have ongoing downtown, or?
Riazumia and John Porter indicated that they had some digital information in relation to the maps. Have you noticed what we saw from them?
Yes, they had a
Paper
digital
map.
version of what they showed us.
And then I guess it depicts some of the work that they're doing now,
Exactly.
and then maybe something that might come in the future.
And that's what he said he was going to send us.
Okay,
So I need to follow up with him to make sure that we get it.
okay. Yeah, because that's pretty important.
Okay, I think it's important to note that then. Should have said that before we
I'm
moved.
sorry, I didn't know what to ask a question or not, I mean,
About it.
Yes, so,
since I wasn't here. I didn't-
yes. So an amendment to the, a note on the minutes of the meeting, we need to follow up with the utility work map that Ria said he was going to show
To
us.
provide us the digital
Right.
maps that he had in relation to
Right.
what he
Thank you.
presented.
And today maybe we can, well, I'm not sure, it says here about it being electrical work that was being done on Grant in front of, at the corner of Grant and Salinas.
Where are you reading from?
Oh, I'm reading about that Patty had, the concern, her concern was that utility projects be done, there's coordination, which apparently there is some
And that's
kind
part-
of coordination.
Yeah,
But the streets get dug up and then they get covered up and then they get dug up again. And we weren't sure if it was because it was water, electrical, or,
Part of the response to that is like Yasumia indicated, that there's water and sewer and they're not next to each other. So you replace the water and you turn the street on one side, and then you have to do the sewer independently of it. And that's part of what was going on the grant, and that was the discussion. And obviously those lines are the ones that are feeding the new facility, which is just under construction right now for bridge number 2. Part of what she wanted, and then the other thing too was as far as, okay, how do we coordinate with other entities such as AEP? And that's when we said we're gonna have to also invite them so that we can have an idea of what AEP is doing, so that we can try to.
if you read the next paragraph covers that. Where where Mia confirms that the work is not necessarily done concurrently.
right.
And then, but he talked about the utility coordinator who's supposed to coordinate the
Okay,
projects.
so I guess what I would like to know is who the utility coordinator contact person is.
That is Santos Reyes from the Building Services Department. And
But the utility coordinator can't really force all the utility companies to go in when a trench is open.
Right. Yeah, no, I understand. I mean, whoever
Right, like
plumber, the plumbing guy comes and says, I need this, and then he goes away, and then, not the
Yeah,
plumbing, but whatever, the water
Yes.
utility, the sewer and all that. And then, but it seems like if we, it seems like if we had maybe like a committee of, can we have committees on our?
I think so.
Yes, we can.
So
it
maybe
would
for the
just try,
next meeting, I wanna
it
come
would
and
try to,
talk
it would
about
be,
that.
Okay,
we would have to have some sort of forecast to understand, like, instead of, oh, they're digging up Grant Street, it would be like a couple months before that, the city tells us we're gonna dig up Grant Street, maybe we can go piggyback with AEP or AT&T or whoever to see if they can take advantage of that open trench. But obviously, we're reacting when something happens because we didn't know it was gonna happen.
Yes, we just drove down Grant Street, and it's, it's.
Yeah, so then they're trying to open it and cover it back as quickly as possible,
Right.
so then it's almost too late to try to hustle and get someone else in there.
so then maybe what we'll do is we'll follow up on the coordinator part of this to see exactly how that would work. And I like your idea about a committee that would work with the coordinator. That's independent of the minutes. So the amendment, let's go back to the approval of the minutes.
So do we need to
So,
motion to
right.
open up?
Ben Quigg brought up the fact that we had not received the map of the electronic copy of the utility work map that we were going to be receiving. And Martin Aleman said he would follow up with Ria on that. Okay. Now, aside from that, are there any other comments, changes, deletions to the minutes? Sensing none, do I hear a motion for approval?
Yeah, I
The
guess-
commission did vote to
Vote to
approve the minutes
approve the
as being
minutes,
Yes,
so-
but we
accurate.
went back, we
and
reopened the
I
second,
guess
so I just want to make sure.
To amend the
Yes.
minutes as indicated.
Very good. Is there a second?
So you are asking for changes to the minutes?
No,
Okay.
they're just noting, it's a note to the minutes that we had not received the electronic copy of the utility work map as had been requested.
I understand. The motion itself, though, stays the same as far as approving the minutes as they're written.
Well, it's not really a note to the old minutes, just,
Yeah,
it's a note
that's
for
correct.
these minutes,
That's
right,
correct.
that we still haven't gotten that.
Very good. Okay, now let's, we've concluded on item 3 minutes. Moving to 4, citizen comments. Now, I'm assuming, Martin, you put that on the agenda, or?
Well, we're supposed to, all board meetings are supposed to have room for citizens' comments. So
Right,
that's why we added that and we provided the document so that if anybody wants to speak during the meeting, they can sign up and.
Right. except that we were discussing this before you arrived, and is this as a city council meetings? There, 3 minutes per speaker, no more than 3
Well,
minutes.
It's pretty
no
much we're
later
using
than-
the same format throughout, and that's what, when I inquired, they said that that's what everybody's being.
Yes, must we use this?
I don't know if that can be changed, do you know if anybody has it differently in any
A lot of
board meetings?
committees don't
What do you
use
mean by
a
using?
card or.
Like allowing 3 minutes, the same rules as city council.
Witness cards are submitted to the chairperson no later than 5:45 and identify themselves before speaking. So if someone arrives late, they can't comment on this. I think that's too that's
Or if we could just say. does anyone
onerous on
want
this.
to
This is a
say
small committee, it's not a council meeting. And if we can work around that, I mean, I don't agree with this. And if we have to look into it, let's look into it, but
And Mary, would you just like it to be open?
yes,
Just like right now, if somebody wanted to speak, they
exactly.
could speak.
I don't mind them
Just raise
having,
your hand.
I don't mind
Raise your
them
hand.
having to fill this out, just so we can keep track of it, the visitors and the people that come in. But otherwise, there should be no more, there should be more than, should there be more than 3 people who to speak on a particular issue? They need to select 3 representatives to speak on their behalf,
Yeah.
et cetera, et cetera.
I'll go ahead and inquire and ask, I don't know exactly how all other committees are doing it or what are.
I'd be surprised to hear.
The committees that I'm a part of do not just let it be open. If somebody from the public attends, they do have this section of the agendas where they can speak their piece. They don't limit them necessarily to 3 minutes or so many speakers. They don't include the language, but the chair does have the discretion to stop a speaker for being repetitive or to move on if there's too much repetition. So I don't think you are bound by the language of council's citizen comments.
Thank you.
Go ahead and modify it for,
For our purposes.
I guess for the record, Nathan Bratton and
That, yeah.
Arturo Garcia. All right.
Okay. So then on item 4, the citizen comments, we've agreed that we'll work with the form, the filling out of the witness card of the form, just to keep track of who's speaking and who has any comments. Otherwise, the comment section will be less formal than as presented on the agenda.
What does that mean?
Less formal? Informal, meaning that we, as we said, if someone raises their hand and they come in and they'd like to speak, we can recognize them and they can speak.
You can do that anyway. The reason that you've got that is because you set out your base rules. Any deviation is going to be within the discretion of the chairman. So if you want to accept a card late, you can accept a card late. It's up to you. But if you're, toward the end of the meeting, somebody comes in and wants to comment about something going on,
Okay. As long
I would
as,
say you
then
keep that and then you.
let the minutes note then, that what Nathan is saying to us is that
These are the base rules.
these are base rules, and it's up to the discretion of the chairman
Right.
to do away with the base rules.
Well, that's not exactly what I said.
What's different? What's different? Deviate.
In other words, if you want to give them more than
I can
2 minutes, you
deviate
do that.
from the base
If you
rules.
want to recognize somebody, you can recognize somebody.
Correct. My one concern here is that if someone is speaking, kind of then we turn to the rules and we say, well, these rules exist, therefore the citizen has to follow this rule. And what I'm noting and what I'm hearing you say is that we can deviate from this.
You can't.
Okay?
But you've got the rules there because if you don't, you're gonna have problems in the future where somebody's gonna come in and want to talk for 30 minutes and say, hey, you did it for everybody else, you gotta let me do it. It's like, no, you get to speak, you get your 3 minutes,
That
you can
makes
ask for
sense.
more time. If what you're saying makes sense, we want to hear more, we'll hear more. If not, then I'm cutting you off.
That makes sense.
But if you just don't do any of that, then all of a sudden, everybody's gonna say, well, you did it.
That makes sense. Okay. So then, let's go on to the next item. Item 5, presentation and discussion on...
Did you want to ask if any public
Wanted to
members
speak.
wanted to speak?
Yes.
You already deviated, so you need to let us speak.
No, actually, they hadn't even signed up.
Yeah.
You know what we should do is,
I'm not doing this card to see if they come back.
I think I also enjoy the idea of their signing that form as they've been doing in the past.
This one?
Yeah, we can pass it around. Thank you. Okay. Item 5, a presentation and discussion on completed current upcoming utility projects by AEP in the downtown area. And I think we're turning the floor over to you.
Thank you. Tony Arce, AP Texas here in Laredo. With me today is Travis Marsh, he's the distribution supervisor for the network here in downtown. And, it's good timing that we had this request to give an update on projects relating to downtown electrical infrastructure. Pass out these maps of the downtown network. About for the last 5 years or so, we've been working on upgrading what we call the underground electrical network from the AP side and as needed on the customer side as well. And we've got a presentation that I'm going to have turn over to Travis Marsh. Like I said, he's personally overlooked all the work that's taken place over the last 5 years and kind of let you know that we're pretty much complete. I think we've got one small project left at what used to be the old courthouse that's owned by the city now. And go over, answer any questions that you all have related to that. And again, Travis sees as the supervisor over distribution, specializing in the network.
Okay. So, I guess some of y'all are familiar with the fire that occurred some years ago, caused a large outage in the downtown area. That, along with the AEP Corporation, had some other issues in some other areas related to the downtown network. So, as a corporation, they put together a massive 5-year project going through that. We wanted to take the opportunity to present to y'all to what we've done thus far, and what we're finishing up, and what we're going to be doing going forward. So the Laredo network, I guess can I steal that mouse? That'd be easier for me, please. Thank you. This is similar to that map. It's kind of difficult to see on there. Pertaining to this group, I just took a snippet of one of y'all's boundaries and I put a red mark as to where we are. Basically, it's north of Grant, south of Houston. Salinas is the west boundary, and San Renato is the eastern boundary of what we call the network.
That's all underground?
Yes, there is. I guess there are, on the outlying areas, there are some areas of some telecommunications and different things like that are up, but all of our facilities are underground.
In that defined area.
Yeah, in that defined area.
Is there any way to expand the defined area?
There is.
There is, I mean,
There's many possibilities within the network. It's very different than your overhead, because we actually take 2 transformers and we tie them together on the secondary side, so that way if we lose one circuit, the other one picks up the load, right? And so in doing that, you have to have specialized equipment. We'll kind of talk about it here in a little bit, and different things like that. So it's a very expensive system. So you just can't say, okay, we're going to go throw it out there everywhere. You want to make sure that the load is there. Otherwise, you're going to start getting things imbalanced, and it's going to really start to have negative effect on something you're trying to improve.
Is that a shared system? The other utilities, are they in there too?
No, that's.
So where do AT&T and those other guys do it, put their lines when they're in part of that underground? You all are underground? There's no-
They're in a separate trench, basically, kind of similar to the conversation earlier. They have their own facilities. So as let's say you're walking in the middle of this area, you'll see a manhole lid with that's ours, and then you can turn right there, and right beside it, you'll see an AT&T or some other utility.
So there's no coordination of trenches, everyone gets their own
Well,
trench?
hold on, I got something for you. But save it, it's further down in the slideshow.
Okay.
Okay, let's let you continue.
So the Laredo network kind of started in the 1920s, some different things, and it's grew and evolved into its current standards. Last upgrades before what we started in 2014 kind of occurred in the 90s and the early 2000s. It kind of finished up. Currently, we have 27 vaults, and they contain 33 transformers and protectors. And protector is a protective device that you have to put on the backside when you start paralleling these that we kind of mentioned on. Currently, there's 300 plus meters that are connected to the network.
I'm sorry, are we talking about this zone in particular, or are we just in general?
This area here, this is,
Okay,
The north
Very
of
good.
Grant, south of
Okay.
Houston.
300
and
meters.
that's what's found? when
yeah,
you just-
300 plus. It really fluctuates on any given day. You could have 308, 312, 313, just depending upon,
approximately.
Got it.
yeah, different things. So it stays above 300, so we just kind of use that as a simple thing. Current work that's been going on since 2014, we've replaced pretty much the entire cable system. Replaced aging equipment, repair and replacement of street lighting within those areas. We have a yearly survey, and we also have required repairs of what they call contact and stray voltage. And this is well, we got a slide on it. I can go into better detail then. And we installed a state-of-the-art network underground monitoring system, and we also built a working load model for engineering use to be able to predict and anticipate loading of different things. We've got two types of cable in the ground. We have a secondary cable, which is basically what the customer connects to get the power to their building or their their services. We replaced all of the AEP-owned secondary conductors. We assisted in the replacement of customer-owned conductors that we determined as risks. I think Tony mentioned it earlier. We have one more location that we deemed that customer needed to take the responsibility and get that cable replaced. So therefore, we didn't have the risk of a customer-owned conductor bringing down the system, kind of what it is. We do have some protection in there, but it's still a wary thing to have on your system. Primary cable, we replaced and upgraded a lot of conductors on that. In the 2000s, late 1990 and the early 2000s, an older model cable was used, and that was replaced. And so since then, as we were going through here replacing all the secondary conductors, we addressed any issues with the primary, and we also routed it in a way to we could have all the circuits as separate from one another as they would. So if you experienced a failure on one circuit, you didn't jeopardize an additional circuit. So we kind of did some reworking on that. The equipment replacements, we replaced aged network transformers. We installed a new high fault energy design unit, which is able to withstand a lot more of internal failure before it ruptures. So it's a much safer model. You don't have the possibility of exploding and having things like that flying around, debris. We replaced and upgraded network protectors. We replaced older units with modern upgraded units. They have enhanced capability on the monitoring system. It goes as far as it monitors whether the motor that's needed to operate it, opening and closing, whether or not that motor's in good condition and different things of that nature, and it reports back through the monitoring system. We installed a device called a molded vacuum interrupter. That's a game changer for people that work within networks because it allows isolation of individual transformers. So instead of in the past where we have to drop the whole circuit to go through something, we can isolate individual units and be able to work on that. And then the street light repairs, we addressed issues with all non-working street lighting. We repaired and replaced the street light luminaires as needed. We repaired and replaced street lighting conductors, and we also installed new conduits where it did need to be replaced. We mapped the street lighting circuit, and that's going to be a drastic change because benefit because the street lights have been there forever. Throughout the years, it's changed, the mapping's changed, so we went through there and made sure we had detailed mapping on everything. Now the biggest challenge is to maintain it to where we make sure we can keep it up to that standard. The contact voltage survey, it's a yearly survey that drives around and tries to find unwanted voltage. We've done it 3 consecutive years and we continue to plan on doing it. Steady decrease in findings. The first year, pretty long list. The second year it's dropped down. This year we have 1. We will continue to perform it for the public and the worker safety. Basically, it's a large vehicle that comes from New Jersey that drives through here, and it just sends out, looks for voltage that's not going anywhere. So it's just a stray voltage. So for instance, one of the findings we had was as a crosswalk light would cycle through there, we'd get 110 volts on the standard, which somebody could walk up there, you had the possibility of having danger. So we were able to get that. You find things like that. Sometimes you'll find...
Is that like a short?
Yes, without getting into too much into the scientific of it. Basically, say for instance you plugged in an extension cord and you had a break between your neutral and your ground. That
They arc.
Yep, it would just kind of be sitting there and it'd have nowhere to go, so it's looking for somewhere to go and it's trying to go to ground on anything it can find. So, that's something that's a life-changing. I don't know if anybody's familiar with New York, Jody Lane case. A girl was walking her dog and she came across a manhole lid and was electrocuted. And so from that, this science and this technology has evolved to where it's a mainstay within underground facilities now. The underground network monitoring provides real-time data. It gives us voltage and current readings on all of our secondary network protectors. Also gives us some transformer readings. Gives us control status of our network protectors. our molded vacuum interrupters. We also have the status and control of them. Within the facilities themselves, we have a temperature as well as a water. If our facilities start filling up with water, we're alerted. It's monitored by dispatchers in Corpus 24/7, and we also get email alerts to the crews and to certain individuals.
So if it's monitored in Corpus, they do find an issue, what's the response time?
Well, we have the crews here, so the crews here are called, and so then it's, it's no different than a line call. Data is saved for detailed analysis. The whole thing is built off of a software, GE software that's called Pi. And they can go back through there. We can make graphs of whatever, anything we want. You can do all kind of stuff with it. So it's really neat. Laredo's been finished for right at about a year, and every day you still find new uses for it. Just constantly doing something different on it. With that, we're also talking about the load model, which is the SI model, allows a detailed look into the current state of the system, and also enables analysis of loading and projected new customers as needed. The end game we'd like to do is be able to take the monitoring data, install it in with this load projection model, as well as the smart meters, and get them all combined in to have one living model. Technology hasn't caught up with the idea yet, but it's getting there. So far what we've invested is the 2014, we did spend $1.25 million on the duct replacement. And in conjunction with that, when we did that, we did get with the city and we tackled sewer, water, and everything all at once with that. So when we knew that was coming up, we did take the opportunity to try to address all those issues on convent whenever we could with it. $2 million in upgrades in 2015. 2016 was our big year. We had spent $6.1 million in upgrades, and then 2017 it was 3.2, and then this year we're just kind of ongoing, wrapping up anything that might have been missed. The underground network monitoring was $2.5 million on the total installation. We did that over, kind of broken between 2 years, and it was a separate project in itself, so I kind of pulled that out and did that one differently. So then we were kind of talking, we established the boundary areas of what we just talked about, the improvements that we did. Also wanted to note that Santa Rita, in that we brought that down, that's upgraded up for the outlet malls. That's been upgraded down there, then it goes underground into that area. And then also the overhead, well, to take that back, the network, as well as where the convention center site's going to be, that's all fed out of a substation on Washington Street. And that Washington Street upgrade circuit that is projected to feed the Civic Center is upgraded, and it is robust enough to handle that loading coming in. And then the two that we talked about for the outlet mall, that feeds out of another substation off of Band Street.
The outlet's not part of the underground network. It's two overhead distribution lines come out of Anna Street substation. Out inside the TIRZ zone that's been defined, but outside of the network. Those are overhead power lines.
So then, the original question, to expand the network, the underground network, what's the feasibility of that? Like, just obviously expanding it to Zaragoza, and
We discussed that earlier today. Obviously there's a financial decision to consider. I don't know what that would be. But
you don't know what the financial
technically it can happen.
chain.
But we don't have a financial.
Is there a way to put together an estimate on?
I guess one of the biggest burdens with putting in a network system is the decision whether or not you want to go with a 125/216 system, that's all of Laredo right now. All the secondary side is 125/216 volts.
In the network.
Within the network. The other option is a 277/480 spot network, which we run in Corpus and in different areas like that. We'll have that. And what that entails is basically the customer comes up with his load of his building. And there's 2 or 3 transformers specifically for that, because the whole design philosophy of the network is that you can take out any primary circuit at any time to perform maintenance on it. So the customer essentially gets 2 transformers and the associated equipment with it to allow for that maintenance. to
Okay,
be
so then I
performed.
guess my follow and not have to double up and connect
Which
everything
we
back.
talked about in
and-
an earlier walkthrough, converting the overhead line on Zaragoza.
Because I believe the utility, I mean, I didn't come to the last one, but I believe the utility department said that they would have to upgrade a water line on Zaragoza Street if the convention center ever happened downtown, and I don't know what could happen with AEP at the same time, or what that cost would be, for what our options could be.
And we'd have to look at it once we have a better set of plans, obviously, because you've got,
Can you all look at that, or do you need a better set of plans from,
well, I don't remember, the sidewalks are pretty tight right now. So that was one challenge, but,
well, what would need to happen for AEP to do like a full-blown design to put it underground?
well, a load, a set of plans.
Well, I mean,
Not final, but I mean-
guess that overhead line feeds,
I mean, the
you
set
know,
of plans
La
is-
Posada, and then all the way down to the bridge.
And-
I mean, so, you
It
know,
goes a little bit past that. So, I mean, you're talking just that square area?
well, it's kind of like,
Whole-
I mean, it's kind of like what
you know.
Abeva said, to clean up that whole corridor.
I had a couple of questions.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, that was very enlightening. I heard over the years that when you all were doing it, I had no idea it was this cost of the upgrades.
It's about $13.6 million.
So, it seems like when you, I don't understand this, I'm asking. When you go to a customer or a property owner that's not in development, right, of their building, right, they've already been there since the 1920s or whatnot with electricity. And how is it that the property owner has to front the money to upgrade the cable replacement, is what was my understanding. The cable replacement is what was being upgraded.
The customer.
Why is the customer, well, I don't know, $10,000, $15,000 was, that a property owner needed to?
It was owned by the customer.
The network,
That part of the cable replacement was owned by the customer.
And is it still?
Still, that portion, as the presentation indicated, we upgraded the peak portion, and then in areas where the customer cable was identified as being a hazard, we asked them to cooperate with their portion, because just to make it a full, complete, correct upgrade.
So maybe a property owner doesn't know how to get electricity, right, and they don't want to own cable that comes to bring them electricity. They just want electricity, they want to pay AEP and have electricity, right? They want to pay for the service,
Yeah, I
they
guess
want to
you
pay
can
for
think about
the.
a house where AEP comes into your meter box, and that, what they're saying is some of these meter boxes on these people's personal property are deteriorated and out of code and need to be upgraded, is what I understand, how I understand.
Right, yeah.
Well, within the network, it's different than your house, to where AEP provides from the pole or what have you to your meter. Within the network, it's different, is the customer is responsible for the meter as well as the conductor to the first AEP facility.
And this is just a standard, this is just.
Yes,
a
ma'am. It's been
standard.
like that since it was written in the 20s.
And it's not just our city. it's
That's
other-
correct. It's
it's-
Victoria, Corpus, everywhere that we're dealing with, we're
There's,
dealing with Frostbank and Corpus over the kind of that same.
There's 3 networks that we serve in South Texas. Laredo has a network, Victoria, and Corpus Christi.
Okay. Okay, so then I have 3 questions.
Okay.
So my other question is the streetlights. Who gets to choose what the streetlights look like, or who actually chooses the
That's your
streetlights?
answer.
And is
Well,
there coordination so that the stakeholders that are the business owners downtown could be involved in that?
Yeah, I mean, the lights that we have, there's certain standards that are available.
What are they? Are they like metal halide or something?
No, well, obviously the city, we're working with the city to move towards LED lighting. And there's a couple of options available for that. There's a cost difference to convert to LED. It's a more expensive technology. The price is getting more competitive, but the city is, committed to moving in that direction. But to answer your question, there are some downtown lights decorative that are city-owned. So that's an option if you want to have your own lights, but then you're also responsible for the installation and the maintenance of that light.
Right, I was
So on
talking-
ours, we have a couple of options when it's AP lease lighting.
Okay, and then the crosswalk lights, you all just provide the electricity to that, so you talked about
Yes, ma'am.
but you don't actually have anything to do with the
Style.
style?
No,
or
we
the-
terminate at customers, city's box, and then they take it from there.
And is that a department of the city that, I guess would be the traffic department?
Traffic department, probably.
They've been involved in some of those upgrades, you could say.
But also no input from the
It's-
stakeholders
I
in
mean, and
downtown?
I guess if I threw a name, but it's been taking us as a
Oh, is it
project,
like that?
depending, no, I'm saying that they can help me, I know they work with some projects, but it all depends as far as how a particular project evolved, and saying, okay, we're gonna, like, I guess when they did, Iturbide Street, it was decided so that they went and did all the special lighting poles and stuff for that street.
Okay, so if I want
It's not something that
input, I
we
have to
just-
just
Yeah,
come
the
around.
decorative lighting
Try
there
and-
generally is maybe a couple of options that we have. And there's a cost difference to go to that particular style of light, but we would still own and maintain it. I know that there's some on San Agustin Plaza that are city-owned.
So,
That, yeah,
Ones that
there's
are
some,
there, I think that there's some.
there's some that are city-owned. And so at that point, the city has.
street lighting is a part of what we're supposed to look at, correct?
Right, and that, I was gonna get to that, I was just gonna let the conversation go forward, just say, so, probably this will also fall under a master plan when we do the streetscape and the idea of what's being recommended, then we get into unifying a theme so that there's some consistency, coordination, and I think that would be taken into account.
And some input from the stakeholders, not just people that aren't, people making decisions that
And
actually
that's-
aren't merchants or landowners
And that's one of the
or
reasons
in
we're,
business downtown.
and that's one of the reasons we're here, the committee, right. So I agree with you, I'm checking what you're saying,
Yeah,
yes. Tony, one other thing, just what led to the request for a presentation here was the fact that, as Ben mentions, when we build up enough money in the TIRZ bank to start projects, what we did, we wanted to target and we wanted to work with areas that were, where everything underground had already been taken care of. So that what wouldn't happen is that there wouldn't be an investment on streetscape, for example. And the idea here being, and I'll use a simple example, connecting, for example, the outlets with San Agustin Plaza, so that there's walkability and people feel they can walk this way and they can walk that way, and not that it's disconnected. You have the outlets here, you have the plaza here, you have the art center here. The idea was connecting them, bringing them together so that they're developing in tandem. But what we wanted to avoid was, let's say we hire someone, we come up with this wonderful deal, trees are planted, streets fixed, pavers, whatever, and then utility work goes in and we take everything up because underground work needed to be done. So we've had presentations done by other city departments that talk to us where they've already done work, water, wastewater. And so the next question was yourself, where you've all done work, so that we know at least we can start working on certain areas, or we can be concentrating or focusing on areas where that part wouldn't get destroyed if some streetscape we're starting to work on. And that was part of the reason. So if you go to the map that shows there, this. So the outlet mall, for example, we see, I think we can all imagine where the outlet mall is more or less there. It's pretty close to the square, but not exactly at the square. And so let's say plans are made for connecting the area. It's not that we're insisting that the zone be grown for that area. What we just want to avoid is that there are no plans in the near future for digging up or changing something that would cause us to wait and say, you know what, wait a year because you all will be doing something, or wait a year because the city will be working on something, that kind of a deal. Does that make sense what we're saying?
Yes, we're finished.
You're finished as far as, in terms of plans?
We're finished, I mean, obviously, a request to convert would change that up, to convert from overhead to underground.
Right.
But that would be a cut, on the requester, but we're good, we've got the.
So as far as downtown's concerned, no future projects?
North of Grand, it's all underground now. That's what you're saying?
In that square, yes.
Yeah, and it's all underground. It's ready.
It's ready. Pending one, it's ready, I mean, the county.
I guess, and if I may, like the map that we had that's highlighting the area that they kind of identified to be worked on is east of Santa Maria, north of Zaragoza, and south of Iturbide, all the way to Flores. Those 8 blocks, as an example, are the ones that are identified in our plan to kind of address first. So would it be correct then to say, based on what you just showed us on this map, Zaragoza, you're mentioning everything north of Zaragoza is pretty much already done?
No, north of Grand.
North of Grand.
North of Grand.
So Zaragoza's not done.
Zaragoza, kind of is a little bit of a question mark, is a pending development. And there's a lot of moving parts, to get back to that question of converting that, I'm not sure it's possible, but it's hard to come up with a number without knowing what the source is gonna be and what location,
So if the developer gave you the load for the convention center, then you all can kind of come up with different alternatives?
I'd have to look at that. I mean, again, it's a little bit early, since, because I think it's hard for even the developer to know what the final product's gonna be at this point.
Right.
We did that walkthrough about a year ago.
Right.
And we can serve it, and we've got capacity to be served out of the Washington Street substation, but we were envisioning an overhead service. Again, I'm without knowing what the plans would look like and stuff like that, it would take an engineering design and proposal.
Right. Okay, I understand. Now, my next question is, like, if we were to look at a block by block case, and if we wanted to upgrade the streetlights to LED or whatnot, is there a rule of thumb of how much it would cost to upgrade? Like how much, like if we want?
Well, if there's an existing overhead, if there's an existing light, which most of them are, let's just say street lights.
Right.
I believe, about $250 a unit to convert those lights from high pressure sodium, which are the amber type of lights, to the LED white lights.
$250 a light?
Approximately.
$250.
Yes.
250.
That's if there's already a light there. Taking one out.
Yeah, see your numbers on it, $250, not $1 million.
Oh, yeah. Well, no, and a comment to add to that is that when we started with the city, this LED conversion about 3 years ago, maybe, does that sound about right, Arturo? It was $400. The technology is improving as it does. The cost is getting more attractive, but given that it's still a semi-new technology, you are limited in aesthetics of the light.
Right.
And LEDs, it's the in thing. But
Who chooses the type of, the color? Who chooses the color?
well, LEDs are white directional light.
There's,
Well, there's only-
like pressure sodium or.
Something that they've kind of done real recently, just go by San Bernardo by Morton High School. and they changed out all those lights just recently.
Where at Martin, or
They're
it's
just,
on Martin's block?
yeah, or the Bartlett extension,
Yeah, too.
that's 100% LED from,
You'll see the difference.
Jackman?
Fenwick,
Oh, Fenway.
from Fenwick
To Delmar.
to Delmar, that's 100% LED.
Do they put out the same lumens?
Pretty close, yeah. It is a, you're putting out, we're replacing a 250 watt bulb with a bulb that's about 130 watt because it's more efficient. It puts out very close. But again, we have to be careful because your initial reaction when you go see the replacement is that what happened to the light? Because LED does not bleed to the top, it goes like that. You know, it's directional.
That's interesting.
One of the easy things to do is get in a dark room and have a regular flashlight and an LED flashlight and turn them both on, and you'll see the difference in the lighting pattern. I mean, it's.
I mean, Corpus
it's
Christi
drastic.
went through a conversion downtown, and they kind of like, wow, where did we,
Do they like it?
I don't know. I mean, he's in Corpus. That's it.
When you're installing new lights and you can lay them out to where the patterns will overlap and it'll be, you know, when you install from the ground up, but kind of what you're saying, we replaced them on existing. Somebody involved in the city said she rode her bike down that road and she felt she was in a disco because it was blinking on and off.
Yeah, see, well, the idea would be to
So it's
replace
kind
lights
of-
that are already there, not go dig up more streets to put up more light poles.
Oh, no, we always encourage, I mean, also from affordability, you know, let's work with what we have.
Yeah, but see, some of these, you only have a light like just mid-block, just one. And if you put an LED light in that one mid-block, it's just gonna be, you know, might be too dark.
Something to take, yeah.
I remember
something-
when we lit up Zaragoza West Convent towards the outlet malls, and we put up pretty strong high-pressure sodium lights, and from a distance, you could see it, so HPS is still a good light.
Right.
You know, but LED is the technology that everybody looks for. But again, understand that it's a different,
There's no spread.
you know, yeah. And it works in, on the Bartlett extension, because it may be close to the air flights, the zones where you want to try to have a,
Direction.
yeah.
Viviana, you had a question, comment?
I have 4 quick questions.
Okay, sure.
And a comment. So is the TIRZ consultant going to be hired?
We haven't gotten to that yet.
Oh, is that on the,
We're gonna, I believe we're discussing that. I'm not
Oh,
sure it's on
okay.
the agenda.
all right.
I saw it.
I didn't see the agenda, sorry. So, there, I don't know if you all know, but the facade improvement grant downtown is, Arturo, it's like retired, it's done. And one of the comments that I had spoken to several.
I'm sorry, Viviana, I don't mean to interrupt you. I realize now, I thought you had sent this to me because we wanted to talk about this particular
Oh,
project.
no.
Okay.
So it's just about this?
And then we'll get to additional comments.
Comments,
Yes.
okay, no problem.
Sorry about that. I thought you wanted to talk about LED lighting and stuff.
Oh, no.
Okay. Are there any other comments or
we're done.
questions
Yeah, we're done.
related to this in particular?
No, otherwise I'd be sending it. Okay,
Sorry.
okay, it's
Vivi.
okay.
Any other,
So then what we're hearing is that there's no AAP projects in the
Right.
near future to dig up any streets unless a new project comes along that requests that.
Correct.
okay. And I think that's, that, no, I wish it had, I know it can't always be that clear, the city department, the cities has ongoing projects all the time, and so, Rhea showed us as much as he could also on his, so he gave us a good idea of what's going on. But basically what's happening now is, what's very useful here is that
square?
that red square there.
Red square?
Oh, red square, no pun.
Yeah,
sure. But what we should do maybe is that a blue square or a blue outline showing Ria's
The
Our
projects.
boundaries, or our bound.
Yeah, well, we have our boundaries. Our boundaries are the dotted line that
Oh,
you
the
see
one.
there. But showing the city's street and drainage water projects to overlay on this. That wouldn't be a bad idea. But we'll wait to see what we get electronically from Ria, right? Martin, you're gonna,
I'll follow up.
yeah, that way when he gives us this, we can overlap it with that. Okay. Any other comments, questions related to this item on the agenda? Okay. Item 6 on the agenda was a review and a discussion of the project plan and reinvestment zone financing for tax increment reinvestment zone number 1 and the Viva Laredo Comprehensive Master Plan.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Remember, we had asked to come to meet and review the master plan. As a matter of fact, thank you, was Martin, you're the one that prepared these for us?
The email, yeah, I told Laura. I didn't know we were gonna have time or not, but since that was part of what we were gonna review last time, I figured I'd leave it there, and if we wanted to continue in the time that we would.
Okay, so at this time, what I'd like to do is then address, because this is a long review, so let's go ahead and get to the question that the questions that Viviana had for us. Just the first question, it's not on the agenda, it has to be, we are working on it, but it's not something with the consultant we put on the agenda yet, probably for the next meeting. So that's.
So is the RFQ out?
Yes.
Okay. And when is the deadline?
I don't remember off the top of my head. It's 45 days out. It was 45 days out, so next month, I think.
So it would be under the planning department?
No.
Where,
Under e-bids.
right,
The
Okay.
purchasing
Sure.
department is
okay, got it.
putting it out, or
Okay.
they put it out.
So, following up, so will you all be forming advisory committees?
In fact, we talked about one a while ago, I think maybe before you got here, where we were talking about a committee, I don't know if we're calling it an advisory committee, Viviana, but a committee that would talk about working with coordinating the projects.
8/1
Okay,
is the deadline, August 1st at 5 p.m. That's the deadline.
okay.
So what we'll be forming, we haven't discussed, but we can.
Okay. Now or some other time? Do you want to put it on
Right now,
the agenda?
yeah, we'd have to put it, something, we'd have to put that
Okay.
discussion on the agenda.
Okay,
And all we talked about is a possibility of forming a committee. The committee we were talking
Okay.
about, you described it best, coordinating, right? The various utility coordination. So that this group have a subcommittee that just tracks and works with utility coordination.
okay, well, there is a utility coordination
Yes.
meeting that people go to.
Right.
Didn't they cancel that?
Yes.
It's canceled? They don't,
It's all by email
they don't
now.
meet anymore. They meet, oh, okay, it's all by.
You know, this stuff, you still haven't looked at AT&T, Spectrum, and Intix.
Right, and that was on the notes of the minutes, where we talked about bringing them in as well.
Okay, okay. So that's a suggestion, like if you can put it on or, we can have some,
For advisory committees?
yeah.
Do you have what would your ideas be of what kind of committees? I mean, we talked about utilities, but what other kind of committees?
Well,
do you
I
think-
mean, even just, when the consultant is hired,
Mhm.
I guess it would probably be best with them, but I would say, like, that a committee that looks at where all the improvements are being considered to be.
Well, that's what this board is for.
Well, I know, but you do want input from.
Right, like from the.
Oh, yeah,
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
but
Yeah,
I don't see the sense of another advisory committee. I mean, we are the committee to decide.
to work, to review that. But the input from the public, we're gonna want, that's, in fact, that's what we've been encouraging so far at these meetings.
Public hearings or public hearings and stuff, so.
Okay, well,
No, so the answer is yes, Vivian, in terms of input from the public, especially
well, it's
coordinating.
downtown property owners and business owners, I guess. I would say that would be an important, but I think the consultant is gonna hopefully know how to organize that.
In fact, that was part of the request, was the description that they have that kind of experience.
Okay. So, well, I mean, that's just one. You know, there's others, but it can happen when this person comes along. So, there is this facade improvement grant that is now finished. It used to be HUD monies that were coming in. And I can tell you that even if there was some money set aside to continue that program for facades downtown, it really has an impact. I know that I don't know, you had some people who were still in line but couldn't meet the criteria that HUD was requiring. And so if it's done through, you know, general fund or TIRZ or something like that, or maybe if TIRZ did a part and general fund did a part or something like that, you know, they can be used, you can have a bigger scope than what HUD requirements are, but they go a long way to improve the fabric, the look of the downtown.
So you're saying,
Which is the idea.
So-
It's, I know you haven't been at every meeting, you haven't come to every meeting, but quite a few of them. And I the one that keeps on, when I talk about improvements and what some of the funding would be used for, and when we say streetscape, facade, fixtures and things of that nature, we mentioned that over and over. I think the group is aware that we want to make sure that that continues, because the idea here, and the reason we keep on focusing on underground, is that we want to use the money for above ground. Because in order for the valuations of the property to improve, you have to see what's being improved. And there's just not enough money to go underground. It has to be in tandem with what's already been done underground. And we have talked about that. I think that it behooves us and you to be, to be active so that we make sure that that's included as one of the suggestions to the consultant, so that that's one of the options. I don't see why that couldn't be one of the options.
So even like if you did, hopefully maybe if the TIRZ approached the city and did like a matching something, they really help. And especially if target, like, target areas around the plazas, around, make sure that that these things continue, because while the convention center and La Posada and the mall and it's all the in-between spaces that give the character of the downtown and that impact so much more.
Agreed.
so the hard regulations were too strict as far as getting the money?
It's not strict, it's what you have, well, I mean, it's strict, but.
Yeah.
What I can elaborate on that is, the downtown facade program started over almost 8 years ago. There's limitations on that money, it must be spent within 8 years. There was no interest after multiple times that we went out for wine assistance, and until finally we started getting some interest. And Vigana was one of the first ones to encourage our organization to apply and successful at it. But it is very difficult for the typical property owner because of the requirements that it needs. You have to abide by all the federal regulations required to data stake and labor, bidding out, quoting. So once you put in $1,
Creating jobs, right?
yes, then you have to create a job or retain a job. And like in one instance, if you're retaining a job and the requirement is, I need to basically, HUD wasn't too clear with us, but they say, well, it's on you, city, to determine whether they're really needing the assistance or not. Well, what does that mean? So we had to almost figure it out ourselves in a way to where we felt comfortable with the property owner and say, well, give us a letter from like your CPA telling us that if you don't get the money, then you're gonna lose the job. So, really diving into,
Right.
And that's just that piece of it. The buildings have to go through a code inspection too. And those code inspections, obviously, there's a federal investment going into the property. So the property has to be viable to be able to be used. So we don't just want, the money's not just for fixing up the facade. It's for having the business.
There has to be, attached to the facade has to be a project of some sort.
Yes, it has to be
Yeah.
functional. You can't fix a facade and the property have code issues related
Right.
to electrical, fire, or any other building code issues. So all that has to be mitigated and corrected. So once
Well,
you start.
we would still want that too, you know, I mean, but just not all the other stuff that you mentioned.
Yeah, so, I mean, it just, we're just going on the
Right.
top. I haven't
Right.
been down even to the good
No.
stuff.
You need to hire someone to do all that, pretty
Right.
much.
So, and then a lot of times when you, then you go into the contractors, the small subs that are, being contracted by them, aren't familiar with the Davis-Bacon and, those issues and those problems, having to work with them and all that stuff. Now, the initial onset of the program, it was a dollar for dollar match. Well, we eliminated all that about 2 years ago, and we made it a $500 match and the rest of it a grant to make it a little bit more viable because we saw the problems or the cost. It really wasn't worth it to anybody initially at the dollar for dollar, correct? Am I remember correctly?
Well, I mean, if you could go through the traps and do all the stuff, yes, it was worth it.
Yeah.
But it
But
does
not
take
ea-
time,
but not
and it does
easy.
take, it's not easy.
I
It's
didn't
not
get to
easy.
asbestos abatement, lead abatement,
But,
so.
But the end result,
All the problems you deal with when you're dealing with the federal government, or all,
With the federal requirements, yeah.
well, the end result is you get a facade, and if you even have 1 or 2 facades on a street that are redone, it changes the whole character of
yeah,
the
it
street.
changes the feel for the street.
And
And that's what we're
we
going.
need that.
Yeah, that's what we're moving toward. I can't tell you how much more simplified it would be, but rest assured, every time we've talked about streetscape, we've mentioned more than just lights and trees. We talk about sidewalks, facade, things of that
Right.
nature. So the long answer to the question is that yes, it is be taken into consideration, and I think the person coming in would also, the consultant would be coming up with guidelines on several of these points.
Sure.
Yeah.
Hopefully they have a lot
Yeah.
of experience with that.
Very good.
One last
Yes.
comment is that the International Downtown Association Convention is in San Antonio in October. I'm hoping that you all, and also you all, the city and the private sector, go. This is about districts, all the districts that have TIRZs and public improvement districts and all sorts of downtown initiatives. And it is really important that everybody try and make it and get knowledgeable. It's from all over the world,
Yeah.
districts from all over the world.
What's it called?
I'll send you.
The IDA is International Downtown Association.
And when is it?
October, I want to say October 8th.
You tagged me on it.
Yeah, I did. And it would be, when is it?
Florida.
They're going to have special workshops, they're going to have all sorts of things.
Right.
International Downtown Association.
Maybe if you call them, you all can get a
It's like,
group rate or something, and
October 8th?
It's a
do you
couple
have
of
the date?
days.
When is the date? October what?
What I'll do is I can send you a link to their website that shows the conference, and what they did is
October
they,
24th through 26th, I'm
There you
sorry.
go.
and they put the conference, last year's conference on their website, so you can get a feel for what, I think it was in Calgary, if I'm not mistaken, or Vancouver.
So the city's gonna take us to Vancouver?
Well, I would say it's your TIRZ,
That's
it's your
where it was-
TIRZ budget.
That's where it was 2 years ago. A year ago. This year it's in San Antonio, so it makes it easier to go
Yeah.
and attend.
Just cut your budget in half right there.
Yeah, you can carpool it.
And I think that's a good deal to put in there. Thank you, Viviana. Any other comments or questions from anybody else?
Just, I mean, as you all know, we're in planning for the convention center. We will make sure that
we will have a consultant as well that will help with some redevelopment initiatives related to historical properties. So I'll make sure that we'll coordinate with this board and everybody that comes to this group to keep everybody in the loop and make sure all working in alignment.
I think that'd be a good idea, because I think that theme that it's, I'm sorry, I know you were very brief, but I still ask you to fill it up. I think that, Jose, that your comments are appropriate in that we keep on talking about coordination, and the last thing we want is to suddenly hear that a consultant or an expert is working on a project related to downtown to do X, and we haven't talked to that.
Well, and I'm in agreement that, if we can all agree, where do we start? Where are the priorities? Because we're gonna have much more need than funding.
That's
I
exactly.
think if we can all agree as a group of,
Right.
what's the scale of our task and what are those priorities? And I'm in agreement, even though we have some very pronounced corridors to the mall, to San Bernardo, San Agustin, there are other things happening in the area that we probably should all consider.
Iturbide Street is almost done, all it needs is lighting. Really, all it needs is lighting.
Well, and that's all part of what we need to take, that's what the input we need, and that's what we're bringing the consultant in for.
And I will tell you that the facade improvement is going to really, a lot of people who wanted to do it couldn't do it for various reasons.
What is the typical facade,
Cost?
not cost, but what does it entail? Like when a guy wants to come, I want to apply for the facade grant, what do they want to do?
Well, if it's in a historic area, they have to go through landmark board. And they have to get it approved.
But what are they trying to physically do to their?
Oh, paint, usually,
Well, fix the outside.
it's fix the
Well, I know,
outside.
but I want to know like
Paint, light, what you can do is paint, lighting,
canopies.
canopies, you can.
Signs?
Surface, signs should be a part of it as well. The HUD covered signs as well. It is I mean, really anything that affects the outside. It should also be landscaping, if there's some landscaping as part of the facade, you know.
Just kind of like, just
it
to
could be-
beautify whatever they have.
Right, and it's
Or-
usually you follow the colors, and the guidelines should be fairly simple. Either follow the downtown historic guidelines for historic buildings, or, you know, it's like such an amazing, anybody who wants to put a new canopy up, you know, and at the entrances, it would be really important, like, for instance, as you come off the highway, to see if you can get some of those people to, you know, either beautify, if they don't have a nice facade, they need to fix it up and do something with it so it looks more part of the fabric of downtown. And there's just, it's fairly simple to do. By the way, the four blocks are going to be master planned and finished in terms of planning for the 4 blocks. They just let out the contract for the city, so.
To go
you
to
know,
construction?
No, it's the final design,
Oh,
because before there was really no design, it was just a charrette. So that,
Very good. Something else that we know that we're gonna be,
right.
okay. Any other comments? Okay, the item on the agenda that we're coming up on is a review of the plan. What we committed to doing, or we asked to do, is sitting down and reviewing the plan as it was developed. Any ideas on how to move forward with that, other than looking at this and turning page by page by page?
wait, are you talking about reviewing our plan and,
Yes.
and how it relates to the Viva Laredo master plan?
Well,
Comp plan.
well, here it says review and the Viva Laredo Comprehensive Plan. It's not comparing them. But if you recall what was brought up at a meeting, it was a while back. Someone said, I don't even remember the plan itself,
The Viva Laredo
No.
plan or the TIRZ plan?
the TIRZ plan.
Our plan.
Our plan. And so we committed getting a copy to everybody, and then sitting down and answering any questions anybody may have about the plan itself, in case they had forgotten the details of the plan. Because remember, the questions came up about how much, what would it be used for, what the funding would be used for, what the structure of the organization was gonna be, who appointed what, the details on the plan.
And I think that was a discussion, so that everybody can be familiar, we could agree that this is what the intent, based on what is here, this is the intent, this is what we interpret that.
Well, it kind of goes to what Viviana just mentioned about the public input side of it, you know, so are we trying to say that the plan is a plan and that's it? And, you know,
Well, I think the
I
plan.
don't think, I think at the time that it was brought up, it was because some people were not familiar with the plan. At this meeting, a couple of people were asking questions related to the plan, that said it's in the plan. And then someone at that meeting said, you know, it would be helpful to sit down and review the plan.
And since
Do you
we were
recall
gonna
that?
have some time, because they were gonna be,
Because
the
we had-
request of he said, well, you know what, let's use this next 2 months to do that.
Exactly.
And then kind of like, part of what I remember is like, well, what is it? And we were saying, well, look at the yellow highlight, this area that is indicated as priority. I mean, do we still wanna
In
have
case.
that area as priority or not?
Well, I think we should review the plan on our, not here.
yeah.
I think we should review the plan on our own time and then come back with any comments that we want to address in the plan that we already approved this plan.
Right, it's not a matter of approving it. That
Okay,
was
it's just a
not.
matter of understanding it?
Exactly, because we were asking questions that this group was asking questions that we kept on referring back, no, that's already been answered, it's in here and it's X. No, that's already been answered, it's Y.
Okay.
And then someone said, you know what, I don't remember this plan, it was so
Right.
long ago.
Okay.
So that's why it was suggested, again, that between now and the consultant coming on board, let's ourselves become familiar with the plan.
I really didn't understand what we were kind of trying to do with that item, so I mean, I'd appreciate what you just mentioned, going back and looking at the comp plan and then comparing exactly that, and then putting it a little bit more clearer on the agenda so that way we can have the public input to, as to what corridors, for example, I'm sure that the corridor by Zaragoza and then Iturbide, like you just mentioned, the development of it would be key. No?
Well, yeah, absolutely, and I would suggest that the comp plan is on vivalaredo.org, and you can just click on the icon for intercity redevelopment, and also in the first chapter too, there's a couple of chapters, but intercity redevelopment, and it's goals and policies, and then read your plan and see how, because as you implement, I mean, you are actually making, that comprehensive plan can move on in the following year to say, hey, this has been done.
Right.
Go, let's figure out what the next thing needs to do. And then you bring up the comp plan so that it keeps going forward. It's supposed to happen, well, it's not gonna happen this year, but it'll happen next year.
A review.
A review.
Right.
Well, I think that was kind of one of the biggest questions that I had, is that we have our plan, and then there's other plans that have been done, that have been approved, that were never approved by the city.
Right.
And then there's this is the comprehensive master plan. Well, is that what we're supposed to use, or do we come up with our own plan? You know, all these.
I think the TIRZ is coming up with this. Once you get your consultant, I think that's what's happening.
To come up with our own plan using all the other plans that have been done.
Well, you can
Right.
consider them. You
Right,
can consider
considering
them.
them.
And, but you want to refer back to the comp plan because that was done with a lot of input from many thousands of people. And many of you were at those meetings,
And then
the
obviously, you know,
workshops.
new developments coming underway. I mean, we got the convention center hopefully coming in. We got Iturbide developing. You got this corridor over here developing too.
Right.
I've just heard some of the frustration with like another plan, you know, like it's time to stop planning and start.
Some of them are saying,
But I think.
But-
sorry.
Well, saying the same thing.
This is the plan.
Well, but-
We need the implementer, the consultant that's been hired is to implement the plan. And part of implementing the plan is taking into consideration the master plan.
Comprehensive.
comprehensive.
And I was gonna say, some of, actually, the plans say very similar things. They're not necessarily different, you know, they're all taking other plans in consideration, so.
So,
So then, those board members, because this was brought up by the board, okay?
Correct.
So those board members that need a copy of this, we have several copies here. If not, this is our task to read this, to go to
avivalaredo.org, inner city redevelopment.
and read that plan.
Or, and what we've done with other people who are interested, other groups, Frank, I, and Mario have come in and done, 20, 30-minute presentation.
Thank you.
If you all want that, we can do
I
that
think
as
that
well.
would be a good idea.
We've had several presentations, it's, purposely, so.
So if you want to do that, we can do that.
We need a walk.
We haven't done our field trip yet that we talked about.
Yeah.
That's a pretty good idea.
And maybe, and also I know that you're working with a couple of consultants or advisors that are helping there. If there's an opportunity also to talk about the plan, that would be good to hear as well, so that we can get an insight.
When we do the field trip, I hope it includes a walk across the river and back.
I'd love to do that.
Because I just walked across and it was pretty amazing, the new bridge, the new technology.
I see, to see that, I'm
Right,
sorry, I
right.
was like, okay, why? Oh, that
Well,
makes,
because we
that
have
makes total sense to
Because we
me.
have so many visitors coming
Yes.
from
Yes,
the south moving north, that we should all experience what they experience, walking that way and then coming back,
agreed.
walking that way down.
Okay. Are there any other comments, questions related to this item on the agenda?
We'll be ready at the next meeting, we'll have it on the agenda.
When is the next meeting? Second Tuesday, right?
Yeah,
That would be
Second Tuesday.
August 8th. And that's a 2:30 meeting?
that's an early afternoon meeting, right? That's not the 5:30 meeting.
Tuesdays?
Yeah, second Tuesday.
7.
Is it 7?
No, sorry, the 14th,
No.
August 14th, second Tuesday?
Yeah.
August the 14th. Am I looking at the wrong
Yes,
year?
no, you're right.
Isn't that budget?
No, we usually have them after 5:30. Okay.
August 14th?
This is second Tuesday.
Is it the second Tuesday?
Yeah.
Yes. Because August starts on a Wednesday, so that's what goes into the third
Wow.
week.
Okay.
2:30.
And we have that meeting here.
Yeah. Okay. Do I,
Homework is
Do I
to
keep-
read,
We can compare
I'm
plans.
sorry?
that's our homework.
That's the homework. Do I, yes? Oh, yeah, sorry. Yes. There you go. Do I hear a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed? Same sign. Meeting is adjourned.